Dance with the speaker till you hear it blow, blow, blow.
Alright, so we have today
Stand up straight.
Mr. Buda.
Deadly Buda.
Mr. Deadly Buda. Why don't you introduce
name.
yourself?
Hi, my name's...
Wait, hold on. Shut the fuck up!
Yeah.
That's it.
You gotta learn some
Special
respect in there.
I know.
What the hell?
She gets that every episode.
Deadly Buda.
Originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where I was born and where I got my start. And now I live in Los Angeles area, Santa Monica to be exact. And in between those two places, I also lived in Boulder, Colorado.
Like what BPM is slow, according to you?
Well, I mean like 80.
Okay.
You know, so in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, when I was in about 8th grade, and almost immediately I started doing graffiti art, which sent me down a path of juvenile delinquency almost immediately.
Okay.
I was in, I think, middle school or high school, whatever 10th grade was, and so I did a report on Buddhism. And at the time I was writing, actually strangely enough, I was writing rave as my tag name. And so
okay.
I decided, I was like, B-U-D-A, that was kind of cool letters. And so I just started writing that thereafter.
Okay.
And so...
What came first, the chicken or the rave?
What do you mean? The graffiti
Chicken.
or the
I'm
rave?
sorry, the graffiti or the rave. Or the chicken.
Well, definitely the graffiti, because that was in, I started doing graf in about 1983 or 80, maybe even earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, because actually my first piece ever was before I was living in West Virginia, so my first graffiti piece was actually in Bridgeport, West Virginia, on a handball court. I accidentally started a record store. The record store was called Turbo Zen. Mm-hmm. And then we did a series of parties. There's the first one we did, I think was called Power Rave. And then we did ones like Driving Current and High Voltage and Soul. Because I essentially wanted to get vinyl, and the only way to really get it was to have a distributor account with Watts Music. And so I kind of I started the process of making up a fake business. And so just to get the license to get the wholesale records. Well, so then I was going to buy some comic books one day, and they had this empty room. And so I remembered, if you remember the story about the guys in England that had a little closet and they were selling white labels, I was like, hey, how much is that, would that be to rent that little space? And they're like, $75 a month. And I was like, I'll do it.
Okay.
In fact, we had a whole crew.
And who would you have, who else DJ'd
out? Let's see, the main people, it was me, Side 2, Plus Effects, Digital Jesus, Finger, and then occasionally, we would have people Diesel Boy would play a lot, Terry Kicks, Harry the Wire played a couple times, 187, he was kind of a regular. We had, the Techno Terrorists would often play, a guy named Vic Money.
And what were you playing at the time?
It was a lot of hardcore. Yeah, that was, I guess you could say that was more or less Pittsburgh's thing at the time. I mean, the parties we would start out with we would start out with house, then techno, and then something that was, I guess you could call it jungle, before it really became jungle. Saji Fu, he played a lot. And then we would go into acid trance, what might be called trance now, and then we would just do hardcore for about 4 hours, and then after that we would go into more house and techno, and end the night with actually with like 70s disco.
Music influences growing up.
Well, at that time, that was the early rap years. So pretty much like Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, Run DMC, Treacherous 3. A lot of the early electro, I guess it would be called now, electro stuff. And like there was a Fresh 3 MCs record that went Fresh, 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 fresh. Yo, that's fresh, which was like a huge monster of a hit, and you hardly ever hear it anymore for whatever reason. So there was actually all these, and there was Einstein that went Einstein, 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 Einstein. And so you also don't hear that too much anymore. But I like the idea of throwing parties. I thought of that as like an artistic thing to do. And my girlfriend at the time was a well-known club promoter, and she would do these really elaborate parties, and I really like looked up to her and how she did her thing. So anyway, I moved away from New York, and I had a friend from England who was telling me about all the rave stuff that was starting out there, and he sent me a tape. Well, so yeah, this is the Hard Data, which is a new magazine that I'm publishing. And I shouldn't just say I'm publishing it, because there's a lot of other people involved that are making it happen. The Hard Data, this is a big deal. What the Hard Data is, it's a magazine dedicated to the harder sound of electronic dance music. Basically because, all these magazines that come out about EDM, they never really cover the harder side of things. And actually, I go to these parties, we see the kids love it. Not just the kids, there's, people like myself that don't qualify as kids that like it too. So, in fact, there's like multiple generations of ravers now that are into it and still are.
We like it too. We like that hard stuff too.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the hard style, gabber, happy hardcore, the harder drum and bass stuff, it just wasn't being covered. So that's why I made the magazine. We'll mail a copy for free to anyone that wants one anywhere in the world.
Sick.
Yeah,
okay.
So we already got
So the first one's free.
The first one's free.
I've heard about other dealers that do stuff like that, but
right,
okay.
Yeah.
It works too, I heard so.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping it does, because I would like to get people addicted to the Hard Data. I think there's much worse things in life you can be addicted to.
I'm down with the data.
So I think it would be a good habit to form. Basically, we can send you one for free, and we'll lose money on that, and we don't know how to charge anyone for it yet. But we are.
But you love it.
We love it, and frankly, we're supported by the advertisers too. If you want the news about your party handed out to 10,000 people, which is more than you probably would do with a flyer, it's a good deal.
And the scene out in Cali is still big enough to do that?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about Nocturnal Wonderland in this last issue. There were 45,000 people a night there for 3 nights.
People.
That's pretty big,
That's a lot of people.
Electric Daisy Carnival, they get 120,000 people a night. So the scene is by no means, it's not dying down, and it never has, and it never will. People are gonna dance, until as long as they have legs, and even if they don't have legs, they're going to dance.
All right, can we get a high five? All right.
I would like to give a collective spank to everyone that's going to the parties and that will and
that's a lot. That could be 45,000 spanks.
Yeah, I would give 45,000 spanks to the party attendees, because this is an important time in your life. You might not know it now, but the people you meet are going to be some of your friends, lovers maybe, for the rest of your life. So don't take it for granted and appreciate it while it's happening.
Alright, well.
Yo, this is Deadly Buda. I want to give a shout out to Speaker Spankers.